What if the world's biggest winner by 2030 isn't China or the United States, but a small island nation most people underestimate? When global power is discussed, the conversation almost always revolves around two giants, the United States and China. Their economies, militaries, and technological rivalry dominate headlines. But history has a habit of surprising us. Sometimes the true winners aren't the loudest or the largest. They're the smartest, most adaptive, and most strategically positioned. Singapore doesn't look like a future global winner at first glance. It has no natural resources, a small population, and no massive military. Yet behind the scenes, Singapore is quietly positioning itself at the center of global finance, technology, trade, diplomacy, and governance. While superpowers are locked in costly conflicts, debt crises, and ideological battles, Singapore is playing a completely different game, one focused on stability, neutrality, efficiency, and long-term planning. By 2030, the world won't just be led by raw power, it will be shaped by who controls money flows, data, logistics, and trust. And in all of these areas, Singapore is already outperforming far larger nations. Today, we'll break down 5 critical reasons why Singapore is on track to win 2030, while China and the United States struggle with their own internal and external challenges. Point 1. Strategic neutrality in a divided world. As global tensions rise, neutrality has become one of the most valuable strategic assets, and Singapore has mastered it. Unlike China and the United States, which are locked into ideological, military, and economic confrontations, Singapore has deliberately positioned itself as a trusted middle ground. The US-China rivalry is forcing countries to choose sides, creating instability in trade, technology, and diplomacy. Singapore refuses to play that game. It maintains strong military cooperation with the United States while also being one of China's most important financial and trade partners. This balanced approach allows Singapore to benefit from both worlds without becoming a target of retaliation. Multinational corporations understand this. When companies fear sanctions, trade wars, or political unpredictability, they look for safe hubs. Singapore offers legal transparency, political stability, and diplomatic neutrality, making it the preferred headquarters for global banks, tech firms, and logistics giants. China faces trust issues due to state control and geopolitical concerns. The United States faces growing polarization, regulatory uncertainty, and foreign skepticism. Singapore, on the other hand, projects consistency. Governments trust it, corporations trust it, investors trust it. By 2030, neutrality won't be weakness, it will be power. While others burn resources competing, Singapore profits by connecting them. Point 2. Financial capital of the future. Money doesn't follow flags, it follows stability. And Singapore is becoming the most trusted financial hub of the 21st century. As confidence in Western financial systems fluctuates and China's capital controls tighten, Singapore has emerged as the preferred destination for global wealth. Private banking, sovereign funds, cryptocurrency firms, and fintech startups are all flowing into the city-state. Singapore offers something rare: strict regulation without unpredictability. Unlike the US, where sudden policy changes and political pressure can shake markets, Singapore's governance is technocratic and long-term focused. Unlike China, where state intervention can override private ownership, Singapore protects capital with world-class legal frameworks. By 2030, trillions in Asian, Middle Eastern, and even Western wealth are expected to be managed from Singapore. It is becoming the Switzerland of Asia, only faster, smarter, and more digitally advanced.
When you control money flows, you influence global decisions, and Singapore understands this better than anyone. Point 3. Technology without chaos. The future belongs to technology, but only when it's governed correctly. This is where both the US and China face serious problems. America leads in innovation, but struggles with regulation, data privacy, and political interference. China advances rapidly, but faces global pushback over surveillance, censorship, and state control. Singapore offers a third model: innovation with trust. Singapore has positioned itself as a global hub for artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, biotech, and smart city development without scaring investors or citizens. Its AI governance frameworks are already being studied by other countries as a model for the future. Instead of chaotic tech expansion or authoritarian control, Singapore focuses on controlled experimentation. That makes it attractive to global tech companies seeking a safe place to develop and test next-generation technologies. By 2030, the countries that win won't just invent technology, they'll define the rules for using it. Singapore is quietly writing those rules. Point 4. Master of global trade and logistics. Geography is destiny, and Singapore's location is unmatched. Sitting at the heart of global shipping routes, Singapore controls one of the busiest ports in the world. But it's not just about ships. Singapore integrates ports, air cargo, digital trade platforms, and supply chain finance into a single ecosystem. As trade routes shift away from unstable regions and companies look to diversify supply chains away from China, Singapore becomes the command center. Goods may be manufactured elsewhere, but they are financed, insured, routed, and coordinated through Singapore. The U.S. struggles with aging infrastructure. China faces geopolitical pushback. Singapore upgrades continuously, investing heavily in automation, AI-driven logistics, and green ports. By 2030, controlling logistics will be as powerful as controlling armies, and Singapore is already ahead. Point 5. Governance built for the long game. Perhaps Singapore's greatest advantage is something rarely discussed: its governance model. While the U.S. is trapped in election cycles and political polarization, and China faces demographic decline and centralization risks, Singapore plans decades ahead. Policies are data-driven, merit-based, and brutally pragmatic. Leadership in Singapore is trained, tested, and held accountable. Corruption is minimal, efficiency is maximal. This allows Singapore to adapt faster than larger nations burdened by bureaucracy or ideology. By 2030, global success won't depend on size, but on speed, intelligence, and adaptability. Singapore has optimized all three. So will Singapore replace the United States or China as a traditional superpower? No. And that's exactly why it will win. The world of 2030 won't be ruled by empires alone. It will be shaped by hubs, places where money, data, trade, diplomacy, and trust converge. Singapore doesn't need to dominate the world. It just needs to sit at the center of it. While China and the U.S. compete, spend, and strain their systems, Singapore profits from being indispensable to both. It is the referee, the banker, the connector, and the quiet winner. The biggest shifts in history are rarely loud. They happen silently, efficiently, and before most people realize what's changed. And by the time 2030 arrives, the world may finally understand. The future wasn't won by power, but by precision.